The acrid tang of burnt ozone and melted polymer still clung to the Resolute's bridge air. The afterimage of the parasitic frigate's explosion seared into the viewport's polarized glass. Petty Officer Jessa barked a short, relieved laugh as she wiped a streak of neon green coolant off her tactical console, slapping the shoulder of Weapons Officer Rourke, who was already powering down the main cannon's charge cycle. "Told you the synchronized barrage would turn that thing to scrap," she said, already pulling up the post-engagement damage report. The low thrum of the ship's engines had steadied. The violent shudder of the frigate's final antimatter burst, fading into the background hum of the bridge's life support. Then Cade's voice cut through the quiet, tight, stripped of its usual laid-back drawl. "Captain, you need to see this." Imani's hand hovered over the command chair's armrest, the faint scar across her knuckles from a 6-year-old asteroid collision itching under her uniform cuff. She turned to the comms station before Cade could repeat himself, and his screen was already split into 3 feeds. The first was the frigate's final telemetry, the second a live signal trace pulsing bright red across the sector, the third a rolling list of fleet identification codes that made her throat go tight. The 7th Sol Expeditionary, the Titan Colony Guard, the Lunar Perimeter Fleet. All fleets declared lost, MIA, or destroyed in the last 15 years, their last known coordinates swallowed by uncharted nebula or unmarked gravitational anomalies. "The signal didn't die with the frigate," Cade said, his fingers flying across his console as he pulled up the signal's origin points. "It jumped, hit 72 other hybrid vessels hiding in the Carina's radiation shadow, all of them carrying those lost fleet insignias. They're broadcasting on every open frequency, Captain." He tapped a key and a distorted, fragmented audio clip filled the bridge, overlapping voices, some familiar, some stretched into static, the core message clear even through the garble. Resolute added to the archive, assimilation imminent. The bridge went silent, Jessa's laughter dying in her throat. Rourke's hand hovered over the weapons override, and the executive officer, Mateo, was already on his feet, moving to the tactical map at the front of the bridge. Imani stood, walking the 3 steps to the sensor console, and the numbers scrawling across the screen made her jaw tighten. 317 power signatures, all dormant just 90 seconds prior, now blooming bright as they powered up weapon systems, thrusters, and the strange, pulsing energy fields she'd only seen in classified intelligence briefings from the Outer Rim colonies. The frigate hadn't been an attack. It had been a test, a lure to draw the Resolute out of its stealth orbit, to confirm the ship's signature, its crew complement, its weapon capabilities. 3 sharp, insistent pings blared from the tactical console, so loud the bridge lights flickered for half a second. Weapons locks. 3 fast, heavy cruisers had broken formation, their targeting systems locked onto the Resolute's forward shield generator. "Point defense is hot," Jessa said, her voice steady now, no trace of the earlier levity, "but those warheads are shielded. We can't intercept all of them if they launch a full salvo." Imani walked back to her command chair, her boots clicking against the grated metal floor, and tapped the armrest twice, her pre-engagement ritual, the same one she'd done before the battle at Epsilon Eridani, before the loss of the 7th supply convoy, before every hard choice she'd had to make in the last decade of war. She adjusted the cuff of her uniform, her knuckles white where she gripped the chair's edge, and her voice was even, calm, the same tone she used to give routine navigation orders, which made it hit harder than any yell. "All hands battle stations," she said, her gaze sweeping the bridge, meeting each crew member's eyes in turn. "Weapons, full charge on all primary and secondary systems, target the lead cruisers, weapon mounts first. Comms, jam all incoming signals except the fleet-wide emergency band, do not let their archive signal reach any other friendly vessel. Engineering, route 40% auxiliary power to forward shields, prioritize shield regeneration over propulsion. Mateo, get the fighter wing prepped, all 12 Valkyries, pilots strapped in, launch on my mark only, no exceptions." The bridge erupted into controlled motion, crew moving to their stations with the practiced efficiency of a unit that had survived 3 years of skirmishes against the awakened fleets. Cade's fingers flew across his console, jamming the alien signal before it could spread beyond the nebula. Jessa called out weapon charge percentages, each system hitting 100% in 92 seconds flat. The first warhead launched from the lead cruiser a second later, a streaking orange dot hurtling toward the Resolute's bow. "Intercept it," Imani said, not raising her voice, not taking her eyes off the sensor feed. Jessa's finger hovered over the point defense trigger, then squeezed. The warhead detonated 500 meters from the Resolute's hull, the shockwave rattling the deck plates, sending a cascade of sparks raining down from the overhead conduits. A small dent appeared in the forward viewport, but no alarms blared, no hull breach sirens wailed. The first shot had missed. But the 316 remaining ships in the nebula were already powering up their own launchers, their targeting pings stacking up faster and faster, filling the tactical console screen so fast the numbers blurred together. Imani didn't flinch. She just leaned back in her command chair, and for half a second her gaze flicked to the crumpled photo of her brother taped to the edge of her console, the one from the 7th Sol Expeditionary's commissioning ceremony, his smile bright under the fleet's insignia. Then she turned back to the sensor feed, her voice still steady, still calm. Let them come. Chapter 2, The Nebula ignites. The tactical display bloomed with hostile signatures, each alien cruiser locking onto the Resolute with mechanical precision. The Awakened had no hesitation, no wasted motion. Their doctrine was pure aggression: overwhelm, annihilate, erase. 316 launchers hot, Cade reported, his voice clipped, eyes darting across the console. Their sinking fire control, coordinated swarm strike incoming. Imani's tone didn't change. Pattern analysis, Cade's fingers blurred. They'll stagger the salvos, first wave to saturate point defense, second to exploit gaps, third to finish. Classic Awakened doctrine, they're confident we'll break. Jessa's jaw tightened. We won't. The deck vibrated as the Resolute's reactor surged, feeding power into the ship's spinal railgun. The weapon's capacitors screamed in the background, a rising pitch that made the air feel charged, metallic. Railgun at 70%, Jessa called. Point defense grid green across all sectors, missile bays loaded. Imani leaned forward, her eyes narrowing at the tactical overlay. They believe numbers alone will crush us. They've forgotten humans don't fight by their rules. The first wave launched. Hundreds of warheads streaked through the nebula, contrails glowing against the gas clouds. The alien formation moved like a single organism, every ship adjusting its vector to maintain the kill box around the Resolute. Point defense, staggered fire, Imani ordered. Jessa's hands moved with surgical precision. The Resolute's hull erupted in bursts of light as autocannons spat tungsten slugs into the void. Warheads detonated prematurely, shockwaves rippling across the nebula. The ship shuddered, but the hull held. 70% intercepted, Cade reported. 30% closing fast. Redirect auxiliary power, Imani said. Feed the grid. The lights dimmed for a heartbeat as power rerouted. The second wave of alien warheads screamed closer. Grid holding, Jessa confirmed. Minimal leakage, hull integrity 98%. Imani's gaze flicked to the alien formation. They're adjusting. Preparing the third wave, Cade's console pinged. Confirmed, they're tightening the net, no retreat vectors left. Imani's voice was calm, almost cold. Good. That means they're exactly where I want them. She tapped her console, pulling up the railgun's targeting solution. The weapon's charge hit full capacity, the pitch in the air reaching a painful shriek. Target the command ship, she said, the one coordinating the swarm. Cade hesitated. That's deep in the formation. Firing solution requires threading through 3 layers of escorts. Imani's eyes locked on his. Thread it. Cade swallowed hard, then bent to his console. Solution locked. Firing corridor mapped. Margin of error 2 meters. Do it. The Resolute's railgun discharged. Last was silent in the void, but inside the ship the recoil slammed through the hull like a hammer strike. A tungsten slug, accelerated to a fraction of light speed, tore through the nebula. Alien escorts tried to intercept, but the slug was too fast. It punched through 2 cruisers, vaporizing their cores, then slammed into the command ship. The vessel's shields flared, collapsed, and the slug ripped straight through its bridge. The ship disintegrated in a silent explosion, fragments scattering like burning ash. The alien formation faltered, their perfect synchronization fractured. Warheads drifted off course, targeting pings stuttered. Command ship destroyed, Cade said, disbelief in his voice, their coordinations collapsing. Imani's tone remained steady. Exploit it, launch counterstrike. Jessa's fingers flew. The Resolute's missile bays opened, releasing a storm of warheads. Each missile carried adaptive guidance designed to hunt through chaos. They streaked into the fractured alien formation, weaving between drifting wreckage, slamming into exposed hulls. Explosions rippled across the nebula. Alien cruisers burned, their hulls splitting open, spilling molten fragments into the void. Cade's console lit with kill confirmations. 9 ships down, 14 crippled. Their nets breaking apart. Imani's gaze stayed fixed on the tactical display. Not enough, they'll regroup, push harder. The Resolute surged forward, engines roaring. The ship cut through the nebula like a blade, closing distance with the fractured alien line. Bring us into knife range, Imani ordered. Jessa glanced at her, eyes wide. That puts us inside their kill zone. Imani's voice was ice. Exactly. The Resolute plunged into the alien formation. Autocannons fired point blank, shredding hulls. The spinal railgun discharged again, tearing through another cruiser. Alien ships tried to respond, but their fractured coordination left them sluggish, disorganized. Multiple hostiles collapsing, Cade reported. They're losing cohesion. Imani's gaze hardened. They thought numbers made them invincible. Show them what discipline does. The Resolute's crew moved with machine-like precision. Every order executed instantly, every system pushed to its limit. The ship became a predator, tearing through the alien swarm with brutal efficiency. Explosions lit the nebula like a storm. Alien wreckage drifted in burning arcs, their once perfect formation reduced to chaos. Cade's console pinged again, remaining ships pulling back, they're retreating into the nebula. Imani leaned back in her chair, her expression unreadable. They'll regroup. This was only the opening act. Jessa exhaled, sweat streaking her temple. We bought ourselves time. Imani's eyes flicked once more to the photo taped to her console. Her brother's smile stared back at her, frozen in a moment before the war began. Her voice was quiet but steady. Time is all humanity ever needed. The nebula burned behind them, a graveyard of alien wreckage. The Resolute pressed forward, deeper into hostile territory, its crew bracing for the next wave. Humanity's last stand had only just begun. The Resolute's hull screamed as it cut through the ionized gas of the nebula, the ship's armored bow glowing cherry red where stray plasma bolts had grazed it 10 minutes prior. The bridge hummed with the low thrum of overworked systems, the air thick with the sharp tang of ozone and recycled sweat. Damage report, Imani said, not taking her eyes off the main view screen, where the swirling purple and teal gas obscured all but the faint glint of burning alien wreckage drifting past. Jessa's fingers flew across her tactical console, her scorched gloves leaving faint smudges on the touchscreen. Port thruster at 70% capacity, hull breaches sealed on decks 4 and 7, no fatalities, 12 wounded, all minor. Point defense batteries are at 85% ammo, railguns fully recharged. Cade's sensor console pinged so loud it cut through the low bridge hum. He leaned forward, his jaw tightening. Command, I'm picking up a massive power signature, 12,000 meters long, bearing 090, buried deep in the nebula's core. It's not one of the cruisers we engaged. Imani's gaze flicked to his screen, the edge of the taped photo of her brother peeking out from under her console's edge. Classification. Working on it. Cade's fingers stuttered over his keyboard, the static from the nebula making his screen fizz. Multiple weapon ports, energy yield matching the plasma that took out the Luna outpost 3 weeks back. It's their command ship, Mothership. Jessa's head snapped up. That matches the scout team's final transmission. They picked up the same signature right before they went dark. It was dormant before we engaged the Vanguard. Imani's knuckles whitened where she gripped the arm of her command chair, her voice unchanged. It's not dormant now. What's its weapon status? Forward batteries are charging, Cade said, his tone tight. Estimated time to full charge, 47 seconds. The bridge went quiet for half a beat, the only sound the klaxons starting to wail soft in the background. The 12 human colony transports currently transiting the outer system, carrying 2.1 million civilians bound for the Kepler refuge, were still 18 hours out from the jump point. If the Mothership got a clear firing solution, they'd be ash before their escorts could react. We don't retreat, Imani said, her tone leaving no room for argument. If we pull back, it'll have an unobstructed shot at the colony fleet. We take it out now. She turned to Rourke at the helm. Adjust course 3 degrees starboard, put the nebula's dense gas cloud between us and its forward batteries. Jessa, reallocate all point defense power to the port broadside. Cade, keep tracking its weapon ports, lock the railgun on the primary charge conduit. Before anyone could respond, Cade's console lit up with dozens of red blips. Command. Incoming fighters, 42 contacts, bearing 270, closing fast. ETA to weapons range, 90 seconds. Those were the ones that retreated earlier. They were leading us into the kill box. Small plasma bolts began pinging off the Resolute's starboard hull before he finished speaking. Jessa slammed her fist on the console, reallocating power so fast her screen flickered. Point defense is online, but there's too many of them. They're flying low, using the nebula's static to mask their approach. The ship lurched as a fighter slammed into the forward sensor array, the view screen fizzing with static for 3 full seconds before clearing. Cade's voice was tight. Mothership's charge is at 62%. Waiting for the fighters to finish us off. Imani's eyes flicked to the photo of her brother taped to her console, the smile frozen in the frame from the day he shipped out to the Luna outpost, the day before the first alien transmission was picked up. She looked back up, her voice steady as stone. Cade, lock the railgun on the Mothership's primary charge conduit. Ignore the scatter from the nebula. Jessa, hold off the fighters as long as you can. Rourke, keep us between that thing and the colony fleet. Fire on my mark. Hit probability is 38%, Cade said, his finger hovering over the fire key. 38% is better than the 0% we get if that thing fires on the transports. Imani's gaze didn't waver from the view screen, where the red blips of the alien fighters were growing larger by the second. Mark. The spinal railgun discharged with a roar that vibrated through the deck plates, the blinding blue bolt tearing through the nebula's gas cloud. At the same instant, the first wave of alien fighters broke through the point defense screen, slamming into the Resolute's port hull in a cascade of explosions that threw the bridge into chaos. Alarms screamed across the Resolute's bridge as deck plates shuddered under the force of the port hull impacts, sparks raining from overhead conduits to sizzle on the melted deck plating. Ensign Tally was thrown from her comm station, her forehead splitting open on the edge of the console, blood dripping onto the front of her duty uniform before she could push herself upright. She didn't cry out, just wiped the blood from her eyes with the back of her hand and slammed back into her seat, fingers flying across her board to re-establish the scrambled comms link with the colony fleet. Railgun telemetry is garbage thanks to the nebula static, but I caught a ventral thermal bloom on the mothership. Cade yelled over the alarms, his eyes glued to the railgun's targeting readout. Primary charge conduit took a grazing hit, charge dropped to 58%, cooldown is at 72%, 18 seconds to full charge. Jess's fingers were flying across her point defense console, 3 of her 6 turrets already dark as she fought to track the alien fighters swarming through the nebula's gas clouds. Port flank turrets are offline, starboard battery is down to 41% operational. Those bastards are using our own debris as cover. I can't hold a lock on more than 2 at a time. 2 gunners in turret 4 KIA, I'm rerouting their feed to my station. Imani's hand closed around the edge of her command console, knuckles white, but her voice didn't waver as she tucked the photo of her brother back into the crack between the console and the hull plating, the corner of the frame smudged with a drop of Tally's blood. Rurk, status on the colony fleet. Lead escort took a 120 kinetic round to the drive cone 5 seconds ago. Rurk's jaw was tight as he fought the yoke to keep the Resolute positioned directly between the alien mothership and the 12 transport vessels huddled at the nebula's edge. Their drive is venting plasma, they're drifting into the upper radiation layers. We've lost 4 escorts already, the remaining 2 are picking off fighters as they can, but they're outgunned 3-1. The comms panel crackled to life, a cold, synthesized voice dripping with the kind of arrogance only a species that had conquered 17 star systems could muster. Human vessel, surrender the colonial transports and we will spare your crew for biological study. Resistance is irrelevant. You have 10 seconds to comply. Imani didn't even glance at the panel. Jessa marked the fighter carrying the comms relay. Take it out first, on it. Jessa's fingers tapped a command into her console, and a second later a point defense round slammed into the lead fighter's engine, sending it spinning into a cloud of nebula gas where it vanished in a burst of superheated plasma. Charge is back up to 61%, Cade barked, his eyes fixed on the railgun's power readout. Cooldown is at 88%. Divert all non-essential power from forward shields to the railgun. Imani didn't wait for Rurk's inevitable objection, her gaze fixed on the view screen, where the red blips of the remaining fighters were growing larger by the second. If those fighters get past point defense, a forward breach will kill us faster than a mothership blast anyway. Rurk's jaw tightened, but he tapped the command into his console. Forward shields are down to 20%, aft shields holding at 85%. The mothership fired a warning shot, a searing plasma bolt that grazed the Resolute's aft sensor array, melting half the dish and sending a shower of molten metal across the bridge. The alien hailing came again, louder this time, sharp with irritation. Final warning. Surrender the transports or we will reduce your vessel to atoms. Cade, hold fire until the nebula static clears the targeting path. Imani's voice was steady as stone, no trace of fear. Jessa, what's your point defense status? Last operational turret is at 12% power. Jessa didn't look up from her console, her jaw set. I'm rerouting life support from the lower decks to keep it running. That's 200 crew losing climate control for the next 45 minutes, but I can hold the line that long if we don't take more hits. Do it. Imani didn't hesitate. The colony fleet has 12,000 civilians. Rurk, keep us steady, no evasive maneuvers until the railgun fires. Acknowledged. Rurk's hands tightened on the yoke as a fighter slammed into the Resolute's port hull, the impact throwing the bridge into a lurch that sent Tally's headset clattering to the deck. Railgun is at 100% charge. Cade's finger hovered over the fire key, his face tight with focus. Hit probability is 42%, the nebula is clearing just enough for a clean shot. The conduit is exposed, no scatter shielding on that side of the hull right now. The mothership's charge readout ticked up to 68%. 3 fighters broke through the last point defense fire, 2 making a beeline for the Resolute's bridge, the 3rd angling for the colony fleet's remaining escorts. Mark, Cade slammed the fire key. The spinal railgun roared so loud it drowned out the alarms for 3 full seconds, the blinding blue bolt tearing through the nebula's gas cloud, straight for the mothership's exposed ventral conduit. The bolt slammed home dead center, and the mothership's entire forward hull erupted in a cascade of orange fire, its charge readout plummeting to 12% as its primary batteries went dark. Before the bridge could react, one of the fighters heading for the bridge slammed into the starboard viewport. The reinforced polycarbonate cracked, then shattered. A shower of glass and molten metal sprang across the command deck. A shrill alarm blared, red and urgent. Hull breach detected. DCKS 3 and 4. Atmosphere venting in 10 seconds. Imani's gaze didn't leave the view screen where the crippled mothership was drifting, its charge sputtering as it tried to reboot its primary systems. Cade, reload the railgun. Jessa, seal the breach corridor. Rurg, keep us between that thing and the transports. It's not dead yet. The acrid tang of melted polycarbonate and seared flesh hung thick over the Resolute's command deck, the shrill hull breach alarm so loud it drowned out the distant crump of bulkheads buckling under decompression. Shards of reinforced viewport glass studded the deck plates, glinting red under the flashing emergency strobes, and a petty officer near the comms station slumped forward, a shard of molten metal buried in his shoulder, his radio crackling with static as he called for a medic. Cade didn't glance away from the railgun's control panel, his scarred gloves slamming the last hyperdense power cell into the weapon's breech with a metallic clack. The coils beneath the deck hummed so loud they vibrated the soles of his boots, the charge gauge climbing fast. Ventral conduit still pouring plasma, he called over his shoulder, eyes fixed on the recon drone feed looping across his secondary screen. Hit fried their primary coolant loop, but they're rerouting auxiliary to the batteries. Charge readouts already at 18% and climbing. Jessa's fingers flew across the environmental control hologram, her jaw tight as a deck status readout flashed red. Bulkhead seal failure, deck 4, atmosphere loss critical. Sealing decks 3 and 4 now, bulkheads 7 through 12 locked, she snapped, overriding the safety protocols that would have slowed the process to preserve trapped crew. Engineering team in the railgun maintenance bay is KIA if I don't reroute their life support power to the targeting array. Imani, authorized the override. Do it, Imani said without looking away from the view screen, where the crippled mothership drifted, its hull still sparking with orange fire. The second bridge fighter that had evaded point defense streaking past the Resolute's port side to rake the last escort destroyer, Ironhold, with laser fire. The destroyer's shields flared and collapsed, its hull blowing apart in a silent flash of debris against the nebula's edge. Rourke's knuckles were white on the helm yoke, his eyes darting between the tactical display and the fighter's trail. Ironhold is gone. 12 new bogies just launched from the mothership's port hangar drop ships, not fighters. They're heading for the colony convoy ETA 22 seconds. They'll be in the nebula's blind spot before our point defense can get a lock. The mothership's forward hull flickered with pale blue light, the whine of its recharging primary batteries loud enough to register on the Resolute's hull sensors. Cade glanced up from his console, jaw tight. Hull gun S at 68% charge. I can get a shot at the drop ships in 15 seconds, but they're too spread out for a single bolt to take more than half. The rest will make it to the transports. Imani's gaze didn't leave the mothership's charge readout, now ticking up to 22%. She didn't flinch when a stray spark from the breached viewport nicked her cheek, the thin line of blood welling up and dripping onto the arm of her command seat. Rourke, adjust heading 10 degrees port. Put the drop ships in the railgun's line of fire, even if it means exposing our port side to the mothership's batteries. Rourke's hand hovered over the yoke for half a second, his voice tight. Admiral, those batteries will be fully charged in 18 seconds. If we hold that heading, they'll have a clean shot at our engineering deck before you can fire. The convoy has 12,000 colonists, Imani said, her voice colder than the void outside. Those drop ships carry boarding parties. If they reach the transports, every last man, woman, and child on those ships dies. Move the ship. Rourke yanked the yoke hard to port, the Resolute lurching as her portside hull grazed a chunk of Ironhold's debris, alarms blaring as hull integrity dropped another 8%. The drop ships flared bright green in the railgun's targeting array, Cade's finger settling over the fire key, the weapon's charge gauge hitting 92% as the mothership's forward batteries reached critical whine. Target locked, Cade called, his voice steady over the alarm, firing in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 fire. The railgun's bolt was a streak of incandescent white, so bright it bleached every display on the bridge for half a second. It slammed into the lead drop ship's engine core before the craft could adjust its approach vector, the alien vessel blooming into a cloud of superheated debris that scattered across the void. A second bolt followed a tenth of a second later, punching clean through the second dropship's cockpit and out the other side, sending it tumbling end over end toward the Resolute's hull before its aft thrusters cut out, drifting into the ship's portside wake. The remaining 4 drop ships didn't break formation. They flared their thrusters hard, peeling away from the railgun's line of fire before Cade could cycle the weapon's feed, their green trajectory markers locking onto the convoy's outermost transport, the Meridian. The bridge shuddered so hard Imani's harness dug into her collarbone before the klaxons even started. The mothership's forward battery had fired, the massive cobalt slug slamming into the Resolute's engineering deck 3 levels below the bridge, punching through the outer hull and detonating inside the reactor bay. Red emergency lights bathed the command pit as damage reports scrolled so fast across the secondary displays they blurred into streaks. Engineering status, Imani barked, her voice cutting through the din, no trace of the shock that had rippled through the junior crew when the hull had been breached. Reactor containment holding but port thruster manifold coolant line S been severed, Rourke called back, his knuckles white on the yoke as he fought to steady the Resolute's lurching course. Portside hull integrity down to 62%, lower deck radiation spiking. 17 confirmed casualties so far, Admiral. Railgun charge, she asked, not taking her eyes off the drop ship trajectory readout. 85%, Cade replied, his finger already hovering back over the fire key. I can tag the lead dropship in 8 seconds, but the other 3 will be in weapons range of the Meridian by then. The comms panel crackled to life, the Meridian's captain's voice breaking through static, tight with panic. Resolute Meridian actual, dropship's ETA to our outer hull 90 seconds, our point defense can't take all 4. Requesting fighter support, Lena, patch me to all convoy transport captains, Imani ordered, cutting him off before he could beg for assets she didn't have. The comms officer's fingers flew across her console, the channel opening a second later. All transport captains, this is Admiral Imani, Resolute Actual. Divert all non-essential power to outer hull point defense arrays. Target drop ship engine cores only. Do not engage the mothership. Hold fire until I give the word. She turned back to Rourke, her gaze sharp as a knife. Rourke, cut port thruster output by 30%. Angle us bow first toward the drop ships. Expose only our forward armor to the mothership's next salvo. Admiral, that leaves our port side completely undefended against the dropships when they get close, Rourke warned, his jaw tight. The dropships are prioritizing the transports, not us, she said, tapping the dropship trajectory readout. They'll ignore us until they've taken out the convoy. Cade, fire on my mark, wait for all 4 to line up. 1 bolt, 4 kills, you can do it. Cade's jaw set, his eyes fixed on the targeting array. The railgun charge gauge ticked up to 97% as the first dropship opened fire on the Meridian, small plasma rounds pinging off the transport's reinforced hull, its point defense lasers flickering as they picked off a small escort craft that had broken off from the dropship formation. The mothership's forward batteries whined again, the charge indicator on Imani's console hitting critical. A thin line of blood from the earlier spark on her cheek dripped onto the command seat's armrest, but she didn't wipe it away. She watched the drop ships, waited for the perfect alignment. Now, she said. The railgun bolt screamed out, punching through the lead dropship's engine core, then the second, third, fourth in a single, unbroken arc, each craft blooming into debris before they could deploy boarding ramps. The 4 wrecks drifted harmlessly toward the convoy's outer hull, banging softly against the Meridian's reinforced plating. The bridge erupted in quiet, relieved murmurs before Imani cut them off with a sharp raise of her hand. The mothership's second salvo was already arcing toward them, its trajectory locked on the Resolute's now exposed engineering deck. She didn't flinch. Rourke, hard to starboard. Bring us between the mothership and the convoy. Chapter 7, Episode 15, Whispers of the Void, humanity's last stand against the awakened alien mothership ASF. The Resolute's hull groaned as Rourke forced the ship into a brutal starboard roll, the inertial dampeners straining to keep the crew conscious. The mothership's plasma salvo streaked past, missing the engineering deck by meters, detonating against the void in a cascade of violet fire. The convoy's transports, lumbering and vulnerable, clung to formation behind them, their survival tethered to the Resolute's defiance. Engineering reports coolant pressure holding, barked Lieutenant Chen, his voice clipped precise. But another hit like that and we'll lose containment. Imani's gaze locked on the tactical display. The mothership was adjusting, its massive silhouette blotting out stars, its weapons arrays glowing like a predator's eyes. They're recalibrating, they want us to bleed before they close in. Cade's hands hovered over the railgun controls, his jaw tight. We've got 1 more full charge in the coil. After that, we're down to half-power shots, won't punch through their armor. Then make the next one count, Imani said, her tone flat, unyielding. Target their forward batteries. Blind them before they can lock the convoy. The bridge fell silent except for the hum of systems and the distant thrum of the mothership's engines reverberating through the void. Rourke's knuckles whitened on the helm. They're bringing drones online, hundreds of them. Swarm pattern, they'll screen the mothership while it repositions. On the tactical hollow, the swarm unfolded like a black tide, sleek insectal constructs, each bristling with plasma lances. They moved with mechanical precision, forming a living wall between the humans and the alien Leviathan. Point defense, full spread, Imani ordered. No wasted shots. Prioritize drones breaching the convoy perimeter. The Resolute's hull lit up with defensive fire, streams of laser bursts cutting into the swarm. Dozens of drones shattered, but more filled the gaps, relentless, coordinated. The convoy's escorts joined in, their smaller cannons stitching lines of fire across the void. Still, the swarm pressed closer. Railgun at 90%, Cade muttered, sweat beading on his temple. Give me 10 seconds. Imani's eyes flicked to the mothership. Its forward batteries glowed brighter, charging for another devastating salvo. She leaned forward, voice low but sharp. 5. The railgun's capacitors screamed as Cade forced the charge cycle faster, the console vibrating under his hands. 4, 3, 2, fire. The bolt tore free, a lance of kinetic fury. It ripped through the swarm, vaporizing drones in its path before slamming into the mothership's forward batteries. The impact blossomed into a chain of explosions, the alien Leviathan's weapons arrays erupting in fire and debris. The mothership shuddered, its glow dimming, its next salvo aborted mid-charge. Cheers erupted across the bridge, but Imani cut them short with a single word: focus. The swarm, undeterred, surged forward. Without the mothership's batteries, the drones became the primary threat. They closed on the convoy, plasma fire hammering the escorts. One transport's hull split open, atmosphere venting in a silent scream. The Meridian's shields flickered, barely holding. Convoy is breaking formation, Chen reported. They're panicking. Imani's voice was steel. They hold formation or they die, patch me through. Her words carried across the convoy's comms, cold and absolute. Stay tight, the swarm wants you scattered. Hold your line or you won't live to regret it. The transport steadied, fear overridden by the weight of command. The swarm pressed harder, but the convoy held. Rourke's eyes narrowed. Mothership S shifting. They're bringing the spinal cannon online. That's not for us, it's for the convoy. Imani's stomach tightened. The spinal cannon was a planet killer, a weapon designed to erase civilizations. Against the convoy it was overkill but effective. Time to cripple their core. Cade status. Railgun coil is fried, needs 10 minutes to cool before we can cycle again. Not an option. Imani turned to Chen. Options. Chen hesitated, then spoke. We can overload the coil, one shot. It'll burn out the railgun permanently, maybe take half the deck with it. Imani didn't blink. Do it. Cade's eyes widened. Captain, do it, she repeated, her tone final. We're not here to survive, we're here to make sure they don't. The crew moved with grim efficiency, rerouting power, locking down bulkheads. The railgun's charge gauge climbed, red warning lights flashing across the console. The coil screamed, metal straining against forces it was never designed to endure. The mothership's spinal cannon glowed, energy coalescing into a singularity of annihilation. The convoy braced, shields flickering, escorts burning themselves out in futile defense. Charge at 120%, Cade said, voice hoarse. This is it. Imani's eyes locked on the mothership's core. Fire. The railgun bolt erupted, brighter than any before, a streak of raw fury. It punched through the swarm, tearing drones apart like paper, before slamming into the mothership's spinal cannon. The impact detonated the weapon mid-charge, a catastrophic chain reaction ripping through the alien Leviathan's core. Fire and debris cascaded across the void, the mothership's silhouette fracturing, its systems collapsing in a storm of destruction. The bridge shook, alarms blaring as the railgun coil tore itself apart, flames licking across the deck. Bulkheads sealed, containment systems fought to hold. The crew staggered, battered but alive. On the tactical display, the mothership burned, its vast frame collapsing inward, drones scattering in disarray. The convoy, battered but intact, drifted behind the Resolute, shield stabilizing, hope flickering where despair had reigned. Imani exhaled, blood streaking her cheek, eyes unyielding. Status. Chen's voice was steady, almost reverent. Mothership is crippled, convoy is alive. Rourke leaned back, exhausted, a grim smile tugging at his lips. We just made history. Imani's gaze lingered on the burning wreck of the mothership. Her voice was quiet, but carried the weight of command. History doesn't matter if we don't finish the job. Prepare boarding teams. We're not done until that core is ash. The crew moved, silent, resolute. The void whispered, the mothership burned, and humanity's defiance carved itself into the stars. The bridge's alarms cut out abruptly as Imani slapped the override, the shrill wail replaced by the low thrum of failing backup power. Ozone stung the back of her throat, the acrid tang of burnt railgun coil mixing with the metallic copper scent of a cut above her eyebrow she hadn't noticed until Chen handed her sterile gauze pad without looking up from his tactical console. Boarding team prep is green, Rourke said, leaning against the bridge bulkhead, his armor still smudged with soot from the spinal cannon's near-miss debris. 2 pods, 4-man teams, core destabilizer charges primed. ETA to mothership hull, 12 minutes. Imani pressed the gauze to her cheek, eyes fixed on the tactical display where the crippled Leviathan's power signature flickered like a dying heartbeat. Point defense is holding, barely. Chen's fingers flew across his console, a fresh wave of red contact markers blooming on the display as a stray drone wing peeled off the mothership's wreckage and dove for the convoy's unprotected flank. 3 merchant ships took shield hits, no breaches. The Resolute CIWS is chewing through the rest, but those drones are flying on residual programming. They're not breaking formation. Launch the pods. Imani's voice was flat, no room for debate. Rurk, your lead on pod 1. If the core is still active, you blow it, no half measures. The clamps released with a hollow clang, the 2 boarding pods arcing away from the Resolute's hull toward the mothership's scarred port side. Inside pod 1, Rurk strapped himself tighter into his harness, running a final check on his mag boots and the breaching charge clipped to his belt. Across from him, Corporal Halloway racked the slide on her anti-drone pistol. Specialist Kale wired a portable comms jammer to his pack, and Corporal Voss checked the charge on his heavy repeater, the barrel still warm from the railgun support fire he'd laid down during the initial attack. "Hull contact in 10, Halloway said, her voice steady over the pod's internal comms. The pod shuddered as magnetic clamps locked onto the mothership's cold alloy hull, the hiss of the airlock seal filling the small space. "Breach in 3, 2, 1. The explosive bolts on the airlock blew outward, venting the alien vessel's thin, ozone-thick atmosphere into the void. The team moved fast, mag boots locking to the hull as they crossed the gap into the mothership's maintenance bay, flashlights cutting through the dim, bioluminescent glow of alien glyphs pulsing faintly on the walls. Rows of damaged attack drones sat on repair racks, sparks dripping from severed wiring, one lurching upright as the team entered, its sensor cluster whirring. Voss put a 3-round burst through its central processor before it could fire, the drone collapsing into a heap of twisted metal. "Clear," Kale said, tapping his comms to confirm the jammer was blocking the mothership's internal drone control signals. No other active units in the bay. "Corridor to the core is 50 meters north, no resistance yet." They moved through the corridor in a tight stack, the hum of the mothership's failing systems growing louder with every step. Alien warning glyphs flashed red on the walls, the air growing hotter, thicker with the smell of burnt insulation. Halfway to the core access door, a small maintenance drone zipped out of a side vent, firing a flechette round that caught Voss in the shoulder plate, sending him stumbling. Halloway put 2 rounds through the drone before it could fire again, kneeling to check Voss's armor. "Armor held, no penetration," Voss grunted, pushing himself upright. "Let's move." The core access door loomed ahead, sealed tight, the alien locking mechanism glowing bright red. Rurk knelt, slapping a breaching charge to the seam, wiring it to a detonator in his pack. Kale jammed the lock's signal. "Halloway, cover the rear. Voss, on me." The charge blew with a dull thud, the door blowing inward into the core chamber. The team poured in, flashlights cutting through the haze to land on the core, a pulsing cobalt sphere suspended in a field of crackling energy, its glow bright enough to sear their retinas if they looked at it directly. The destabilizer charge Kale had primed back on the Resolute beeped softly in Rurk's pack, the 30-second timer already counting down. "Core's still active," Kale said, his voice tight, as a low hum began to build under the floor, the mothership system stuttering back to life. "It's shielded, the spinal cannon blast didn't touch it." "It's rerouting power to the drone swarm." Rurk's comms crackled to life, Chen's voice sharp and urgent. "Rurk, drone swarm is reforming, 12 clicks out, ETA 90 seconds. Convoy shields are at 60%. If you don't blow that core, they won't make the rendezvous." "Copy that." Rurk motioned to Voss, who slammed the destabilizer charge onto the core's mounting bracket, arming the 10-second timer. "Pod is 40 meters back. Move." They turned to run, the hum building to a roar as the core's power spiked. A maintenance drone burst through the corridor wall ahead of them, firing flechettes, and Halloway dropped it with a single shot to its sensor cluster, the team piling through the breach it had made. They hit the airlock, slammed the hatch shut, and fired the pod's launch thrusters just as the core detonated, a silent flash of blue light tearing through the mothership's inner frame, the entire hull shuddering as it collapsed inward, the last of its systems going dark forever. Back on the Resolute's bridge, the tactical display flared as the mothership's power signature vanished entirely, the remaining drone markers scattering into the void, no longer coordinated, no longer a threat. Chen leaned back in his chair, a tired smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "Core confirmed destroyed, all hostiles neutralized, convoy is clear." Rurk's voice crackled over the comms, rough with smoke and relief. "Boarding team is clear, core is ash, just like you ordered, Commander." Imani lowered the gauze from her cheek, the cut finally stopped bleeding, her gaze lingering on the empty spot on the display where the mothership had been. "Convoy set course for New Terra rendezvous." Resolute, stand down from general quarters. "Good work, all." She turned to look out the viewport at the burning fragments of the alien Leviathan drifting away into the void, the stars beyond them cold and uncaring. For a second she let herself breathe, the weight of the fight lifting just a little. Then she turned back to the display, already running the numbers for the next supply run, the next threat. The void still whispered, but for now, humanity had won. Chapter 9, Episode 15, Whispers of the Void. Humanity's last stand against the awakened alien mothership ASF. The bridge of the Resolute was quiet, too quiet for a ship that had just survived annihilation. The tactical display still glowed faintly, showing scattered alien drones drifting without command, their formations broken, their threat neutralized. Yet no one moved to celebrate. Every officer knew silence in war was never permanent. Commander Amani stood rigid at the viewport, her reflection framed against the drifting wreckage of the mothership. Status of the convoy, she asked, her voice clipped, precise. Chen tapped the console. Convoy ships reporting minimal damage, shields held. Civilian transports are already vectoring toward the new Terra corridor. Good, Imani said, but don't relax. The Awakened don't build just one mothership. That was a spearhead, not the blade. The words hung heavy. Rourke's voice cut through the comms, still hoarse from smoke inhalation. Commander, boarding team confirms extraction complete. No casualties beyond minor burns and fractures. We're patched up and ready for redeployment. Imani turned, eyes narrowing. You're not redeploying yet. You're going to medical. That's an order. A pause, then Rourke's grudging reply. Understood. Chen leaned back, rubbing his temples. If that was just a spearhead, then we've only bought time. The Awakened will regroup. They'll send another Leviathan, maybe two. Imani's gaze hardened. Then we'll break those two. Hours later, the Resolute's war room hummed with activity. Holographic projections of star systems flickered above the table, each marked with red indicators, suspected alien staging grounds. Intelligence officers whispered updates, their voices low, urgent. Colonel Vera, liaison from the Planetary Defense Council, spoke first. We intercepted fragments of alien transmissions during the mothership's collapse. They weren't just commands, they were warnings. The Awakened broadcasted a distress beacon before their core went dark. Chen's head snapped up. Meaning reinforcements, meaning retaliation, Vera corrected grimly. They'll come in force. Not just drones, entire fleets. Imani studied the projection. How long? Days, maybe less. The silence that followed was suffocating. Every officer understood what that meant. Humanity had won a battle, not the war. The void was already whispering of the next strike. On the lower decks, the boarding team sat in the mess hall, armor scorched, faces pale. Rourke nursed a cracked rib, his expression unreadable. Across from him, Lieutenant Hale stared at the table, knuckles white. We killed it, Hale muttered, a mothership, something that was supposed to be invincible, and it still feels like we lost. Rourke's eyes flicked up. That's because we know what's coming. The Awakened don't forgive, they don't forget, they escalate. Hale swallowed hard. Then what's the point? We keep hitting them, they keep sending more. The point, Rourke said evenly, is that every time we break one of their monsters, we prove they can bleed. That matters, to us, to the civilians, to anyone still fighting. The mess hall fell quiet again, the weight of his words pressing down like gravity. Back on the bridge, alarms chimed. Chen's console flared red. Commander, long-range sensors picking up movement at the edge of the system. Multiple contacts, large tonnage. Imani strode forward. Classification. Chen's fingers flew across the keys. Not drones, not frigates. These are carriers, alien carriers inbound fast. The crew stiffened. Carriers meant deployment platforms, ships capable of unleashing swarms of fighters, boarding pods, and planetary bombardment units. Worse, they meant coordination, strategy. The Awakened weren't sending mindless drones this time. They were sending war. Imani's jaw tightened. Signal the convoy. Increase speed to maximum burn. Get them clear of the system. Chen hesitated. And us. We hold the line, Imani said. If those carriers reach the convoy, New Terra burns. We're the shield. No retreat. Minutes later, the Resolute's hull vibrated as weapon systems powered to full capacity. Rail cannons locked into firing position. Missile bays cycled, and shield generators roared to life. The crew moved with terrifying calm, each officer executing their role with precision born of desperation. The tactical display lit up with incoming markers, 3 carriers, each dwarfing the Resolute. Their formations were tight, disciplined. Alien arrogance radiated from their movements, as if humanity's victory over the mothership had been nothing more than an inconvenience. Chen's voice was steady, but his hands trembled. Carriers closing to engagement range, ETA 6 minutes. Imani's eyes never left the display. Weapons free, target lead carrier. Make them bleed first, the void erupted. Rail slugs streaked across the black, tearing into the lead carrier's shields. Alien fighters poured from its hangars, swarming like hornets, their weapons flashing in coordinated bursts. The Resolute's point defense turrets spat fire, shredding dozens, but more kept coming. Shields holding at 70%, Chen reported. Hull integrity stable. Maintain fire, Imani ordered. Don't let them regroup. The second carrier unleashed a wave of boarding pods, sleek cylinders streaking toward the Resolute. Rourke's voice crackled over comms, urgent. Commander, incoming pods, they're trying to breach. Imani's reply was cold steel. Then we cut them down before they touch our hull. All batteries intercept. Missiles streaked outward, detonating in brilliant flashes. Pods shattered, fragments scattering into the void, but a handful slipped through, slamming against the Resolute's armor. Boarding alarms, Chen shouted. Sections C and D compromised. Imani's voice was calm, terrifyingly calm. Seal bulkheads, deploy counterassault teams. No alien sets foot on this bridge. The battle raged, every second a knife's edge. The Resolute's guns hammered the carriers, tearing chunks from their hulls, but the alien formations pressed harder, relentless. Fighters screamed past the viewport, their weapons carving glowing scars across the shields. Chen's console flared again. Commander, lead carrier shields collapsing. We've got an opening. Imani's eyes narrowed. All batteries, concentrate fire, break them. Rail slugs punched through the carrier's frame, detonating deep inside. A chain of explosions rippled across its hull, fire blooming in the void. The massive ship shuddered, then split apart, fragments scattering like ash. The crew erupted in cheers, but Imani silenced them with a single word. Focus. 2 more carriers inbound. This fight isn't over. Her gaze lingered on the tactical display, the void whispering louder now, promising blood, promising war. Humanity had drawn first blood against the carriers, but the Awakened were far from finished, and the Resolute stood alone. Word count, ~970 Chapter 10. The breach. The Resolute trembled under the impact, hull plating groaning as alien pods fused themselves into the ship's skin. Sparks cascaded across the bridge consoles, the air thick with the acrid bite of ozone. The boarding alarm screamed, a shrill reminder that the battle outside had now become a war inside. Counterassault teams reporting contact in Section D, Chen said, voice clipped, eyes locked on his tactical display. Multiple hostiles, they're cutting through bulkheads with plasma saws. Imani's tone was steady, unyielding. Deploy fire suppression in those corridors, starve their oxygen, force them into choke points. The order went out. Within seconds, the ship's automated systems vented atmosphere from the compromised sections. The alien intruders, tall and angular, their armor shimmering with unnatural light, staggered as the environment turned hostile. But they pressed forward, relentless, their weapons carving molten scars into steel. On the bridge, the crew's focus split between the external battle and the internal invasion. The tactical display showed 2 more carriers closing in, their formations tightening, preparing to unleash another wave of pods. Humanity's lone warship was being squeezed from both sides. Commander, Chen said, urgency creeping into his voice, if those carriers launch again, we'll be overrun. We need to cripple them before they get into range. Imani's gaze was cold fire. Then we cripple them. Redirect batteries, ignore the pods, target their launch bays. Can't deploy, they can't board. The Resolute's guns shifted, rail slugs and missile salvos hammering into the carrier's forward sections. Explosions rippled across alien hulls, but the Awakened adapted, their shields flaring, absorbing punishment with unnerving resilience. The void outside became a storm of fire and debris, every second a test of endurance. Inside, chaos reigned. Section D's defenders fought in brutal close quarters, rifles barking, grenades detonating in confined spaces. The aliens moved with eerie precision, their blades slicing through armor, their shrieks reverberating like a chorus of war. Human soldiers fell, but they did not break. Every corridor became a killing ground, every bulkhead a barricade. Chen's console flared again. Commander, Section D is holding, but casualties are heavy. We've lost half the squad. Imani's reply was ice. They hold or we all die, reinforce with reserves. No alien reaches the reactor. The words carried weight. The reactor was the heart of the Resolute. If the intruders breached it, the ship would be finished. Humanity's last stand would end in silence. The carriers outside shifted formation, their weapons glowing with ominous energy. Chen's eyes widened. They're charging main batteries. If they fire, our shields won't hold. Imani leaned forward, her voice cutting through the tension. Then we strike first, all batteries, maximum output, break their charge. The Resolute roared, every gun unleashing fury. Rail slugs tore into alien hulls, missiles detonated in blinding cascades. One carrier staggered, its charge faltering, explosions ripping across its frame. The second carrier pressed on, its weapons swelling with power. Impact in 10 seconds, Chen warned. Imani's eyes narrowed. Chen, give me a firing solution. Reactor bleed into the railguns, overload them. Chen hesitated. That'll burn out half our systems. Do it, Imani snapped. Better a crippled ship than a dead one. The order was executed. The Resolute's railguns flared brighter than ever before, slugs tearing through the void with impossible velocity. They struck the carrier's weapon core, detonating it in a cataclysmic blast. The alien ship convulsed, fire consuming its frame, fragments scattering into the abyss. The bridge shook with the shockwave, consoles flickering, but the carrier was gone. The second had been reduced to wreckage. Humanity had survived another minute, but survival was fragile. Chen's console screamed again. Commander, Section D bulkheads breached, hostiles advancing toward reactor conduits. Imani rose, her voice low, lethal. Seal the conduits, prepare fallback positions. I'll lead the counterassault myself. The crew froze, the commander never left the bridge, but Imani's eyes burned with resolve. This ship is humanity's last line. If the Awakened want our reactor, they'll have to take it from me. Chen swallowed hard, then nodded. Understood, I'll hold the bridge. Imani turned, her steps measured, her presence a storm contained within flesh. The void whispered louder now, promising blood, promising war. Humanity had drawn first blood against the carriers, but the Awakened were inside, clawing at the heart of the Resolute. The battle was no longer just outside, it was here, and Imani intended to meet it head-on. Word count ~965 Chapter 11, Breach of Silence. The corridor lights flickered as Commander Imani advanced, rifle cradled against her shoulder. The air was thick with smoke and the metallic tang of ruptured conduits. Behind her, a squad of Marines moved in tight formation, boots pounding against the deck. Every step carried the weight of humanity's survival. Contact ahead, whispered Sergeant Vale, his visor feeding tactical overlays into the squad's HUDs. Alien signatures pulsed like malignant stars on the display. Imani's voice cut through the tension. No hesitation, they're inside our veins now, we bleed them out. The squad surged forward. The first Awakened warrior emerged from the haze, towering, armored in plates that shimmered with unnatural energy. Its weapon, a jagged lance of plasma, hissed as it carved through the corridor wall. Vale fired, rail slugs hammering into the creature's chest. The alien staggered but did not fall. Imani stepped into the line of fire, her rifle barking 3 precise bursts. The slugs punched through the warrior's throat, severing its vocal cords. It collapsed, choking on silence. Push, she ordered. The humans advanced, methodical, relentless. Every corner was contested, every bulkhead a battlefield. The Awakened moved with arrogance, their empire accustomed to dominance. But here, inside the Resolute, arrogance met human calculation. Chen's voice crackled over comms. Commander, reactor conduits are 3 sections away. If they breach, containment fails. Imani's reply was calm, surgical. Then we hold them here, no one passes. The squad reached Section D, the corridor widened into a junction, conduits glowing faintly with the pulse of the ship's heart. Alien forces had entrenched themselves, barricades of twisted alloy blocking the path. Plasma fire erupted, scorching the walls. Suppressing fire, Vale shouted. The Marines unleashed a storm of rounds, rail slugs ricocheting off alien shields. The Awakened returned fire, their weapons tearing chunks from the deck. Imani scanned the chaos. The barricade was too strong for a frontal assault. She keyed her comm. Chen, reroute auxiliary power, overload the junction lights. Commander, that'll blind our own optics. Do it. The lights detonated in a burst of brilliance. For 3 seconds, the corridor became a white inferno. Human visors compensated instantly, but the aliens faltered, their shields flickering. Now, Imani roared. The squad surged forward. Grenades arced over the barricade, detonating with concussive fury. The Awakened staggered, their arrogance stripped away by human precision. Imani vaulted the wreckage, rifle blazing, cutting down 2 warriors before they could recover. The corridor fell silent, smoke curling around shattered bodies. Vale exhaled, voice trembling with adrenaline. Section secure. Imani's gaze swept the carnage. Not secure, contained, they'll send more. As if summoned by her words, the deck shuddered. A deeper resonance echoed through the hull, the Mothership itself, whispering its fury. The Awakened were not retreating, they were adapting. Chen's voice returned, strained. Commander, sensors show a breach in Section E, multiple signatures, heavier units. Imani's jaw tightened. They're converging on the reactor, with a wall. Hold position, the Marines reloaded, hands steady despite the tremor in the ship. Every soldier knew the stakes. If the reactor fell, the Resolute would die, and with it, humanity's last stand. Minutes stretched into eternity. The corridor trembled again. From the smoke emerged new figures, larger, clad in armor that shimmered like liquid obsidian. Their weapons pulsed with energy far beyond the smaller warriors. Vale muttered, juggernauts. Imani raised her rifle. Then we break them. The clash was immediate, brutal. Plasma lances carved through barricades, rail slugs hammered against shields. One juggernaut advanced, shrugging off fire, its weapon raised to strike. Imani moved without hesitation, closing the distance. She fired point-blank, slugs tearing into its chest. The creature roared, swinging its weapon. Imani ducked, the plasma searing past her head. She drove her rifle upward, firing into its throat. The juggernaut collapsed, its arrogance silenced. Another surged forward, crushing a Marine beneath its bulk. Vale screamed, unloading his rifle into its face. The creature fell, but the Marine was gone. Imani's voice cut through the grief. No pause, hold the line. The squad fought with precision, every movement calculated, every shot deliberate. The Awakened pressed harder, but humanity's resolve was steel. Finally, silence returned. The juggernauts lay broken, their arrogance shattered against human defiance. Imani stood amidst the wreckage, her armor scorched, her rifle smoking. She keyed her comm. Chen, report. Reactor conduits intact. Section E contained. Casualties heavy. Imani closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them, gaze hard. We're not done. The mothership knows we can bleed it. It will come harder. Vale approached, visor cracked, voice steady. Commander, if they send another wave, we won't hold. Imani's reply was cold, resolute. Then we make them fear us. Humanity doesn't break, not here, not now. The void outside whispered louder, the mothership's presence pressing against the hull. The battle was far from over, but inside the Resolute, amidst smoke and blood, humanity had proven one truth: arrogance could be shattered and silence could be forced upon the awakened. And Commander Imani intended to make that silence eternal. Word count, the Resolute's hull groaned, metal shrieking as the mothership's unseen pressure pushed against its reinforced plating. Imani's comms crackled before she could speak, Chen's voice tight, clipped. Casualty report: 12 KIA, 27 WIA, 3 critical. Corporal Reyes took a plasma round to the chest. Private Javi was crushed under the second juggernaut. We recovered his sister's photo from his armor. Imani nodded, the grief sharp in her throat, no time to dwell. She marked the report, tucked it into her console's memory bank. Long-range sensors pinged a second later, red icons blooming across the tactical display. 17 awakened capital ships, each twice the Resolute's mass, 42 insertion pods trailing in their wake. ETA 13.2 standard minutes, adjusted for their 0.8 C approach speed. Vale's voice cut in, visor cracked, a smear of black blood across his forehead. Point defense at 58%, railguns have 11 rounds left. Hull breaches in sections C and G are venting atmosphere. We can't hold another boarding wave. Not with the damage we've taken. The comms hissed, then spat out the Awaken's guttural, grinding transmission, no translator needed for the arrogance dripping from every syllable. You have prolonged your extinction. Our armada arrives in 13 minutes. Your corpses will pave the void for our ascent. Imani's jaw tightened. She tapped the console, pulled up the experimental Warfed 7 torpedo specs. Single-use, manual guidance required. Auto-targeting had fried in the first plasma volley. Could punch through 10 meters of durasteel, carry enough warp charge to level a small moon. Diverting 80% of the main warp core's excess charge to fire it would leave the Resolute without warp capability for 6 months and drop the ship's shields to 12% during the launch sequence. Objection, Chen said immediately. Shields at 12% means we're sitting ducks for their opening volley. We'll be hulled before the torpedo clears the bay. We hold, Imani said, cold, resolute. Vale, take your team, seal C and G, set ambush points in the command deck corridors. Chen, reroute all auxiliary power to point defense and forward shields. Target torpedoes first, then insertion pods. I'm taking the torpedo bay. The next 10 minutes were a blur of chaos. Plasma torpedoes streaked toward the Resolute. Chen's team picked off 8 of 12. 4 slamming into the forward shields so hard the deck shuddered under their feet. Shields dropped to 18%. Vale's team sealed the C breach, took out 3 juggernauts that punched through G with breaching charges, no further casualties. Insertion pods started slamming into the hangar bay, 6 breaching the hull, awakened shock troops pouring out, moving for the command deck. Imani reached the torpedo bay to find the guidance system sparking, wiring fused black from an earlier plasma hit. She ripped off her right gauntlet, fingers burning as she twisted exposed wires together to bridge the fried circuit, blood trickling from her nose where the mothership's psychic pressure had seeped through her helmet seal. She wiped it on her fatigues, didn't stop. Torpedo launch in 30 seconds, Chen yelled over comms. Shields at 14%, incoming plasma volley, 20 rounds, ETA 12 seconds. Hangar bay is lost, Vale's voice cut in rough, the sound of breaching charges going off in the background. Falling back to command deck, 2 Marines down. ETA to your position, 90 seconds. Imani slammed the guidance chip into the port, overrode the safety locks. The warp core hummed so loud the bay's metal walls buckled, sparks showering down from the ceiling. She keyed the shipwide comms, voice steady, no room for doubt. All hands brace for impact. This is Commander Voss. We are not leaving this sector until that mothership is ash, for Earth, for the fallen, she fired. The torpedo streaked out of the bay, vanishing in a ripple of distorted blue light. 2 seconds later, the sector lit up so bright it was blinding even through the reinforced viewports. The mothership's command spire exploded, the lead awakened capital ship's bridge blowing out in a flash of orange plasma. The rest of the fleet's signatures flatlined, engines dying, comms cutting out entirely. The incoming plasma volley fizzled mid-flight, no power left to propel it. Chen stared at his sensors for 3 full seconds, then yelled so loud his voice cracked. All awakened signatures are gone, no contacts, repeat, no contacts. Vale's laugh came over comms, rough, disbelieving. Hangar bay shock troops just dropped dead. Their link to the mothership was hardwired. Command spires gone, their brain dead. Imani leaned against the torpedo console, hands shaking a little as she peeled off her helmet, sweat dripping down her jaw. Marine ran in holding Javi's photo, said they found it in his gear, thought she should have it. She tucked it into the pocket of her armor, right next to the faded photo of her 7-year-old sister she'd carried since leaving Earth. She keyed the open fleet frequency to every human ship, every outpost, every colony listening across the void. "This is Commander Amani Voss, USSF Resolute, Task Force Valkyrie. The awakened mothership is destroyed. Their armada is neutralized. The void is quiet. Hold the line, we are humanity, and we do not break out." The Resolute's alarms blared once, then fell silent. Somewhere down the corridor, survivors cheered, but Amani stood quiet, looking out the viewport at the floating wreckage of the awakened fleet, stars bright and clear where the void's whispers had been for years. The fight wasn't over. There were more colonies to defend, more threats to face, but for the first time since the awakened first breached the solar system, humanity hadn't just survived, it had won.